pretty much everything we've been told not to talk about, we really need to be talking about.
How do you set those boundaries and prevent that balance of giving too much to people and saving some for the people who really deserve it?
Bold authenticity, collective empowerment, sacred rebellion, and holistic excellence as our 4 core values. Start to fill your cup up with some intentional spaces that you know when you go there, you're going to feel more nourished.
Welcome to the Hot Flash Health Podcast, where we're dishing out unfiltered truths about menopause with a side of sass and a sprinkle of grass.
Get ready to dive into the wild world of hot flashes, mood swings, and all of the other joys of being a queenager.
This ain't your grandma's podcast. No, we are here to talk our bodies, our fears, our passions, our desires, all while navigating this wild roller coaster ride of menopause.
So grab a glass of wine,
Or 3.
kick back, relax, and let's enjoy this hot flash wave together.
I'm Courtney Mamusha, and alongside me is my fabulous co-host, Dawn Fable.
We're just 2 outspoken broads who like to call it how it is.
Now, without further ado, let's kick off today's episode. Welcome back, friends. Today, I am so honored to be speaking with one of my dear friends, Melissa Bauknight. Melissa is quite a powerhouse in every sense of the word, with over 20 years of experience in corporate sales, leading high-performing teams, building businesses, and coaching women to step to their fullest potential. Melissa is now the visionary behind The Nova, a global movement that helps women rewrite the rules, break free from social and societal conditioning, and create success from their own and on their own terms. From her collegiate athletic days to her rise as a top 1% leader in social impact, Melissa blends deep spiritual work with sharp business wits to empower thousands. Get ready for a fun episode packed with authenticity, heart, and a lot of badassery. So today we're going to dive into Melissa's personal awakening, her journey to break through isolation, and how she's building a supportive community where women can speak up about the shifts that are happening in their lives. Shit and shifts.
Yeah, both.
And
They kind of are the same, right?
Totally.
The shifts are the shit.
So let's dive in. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to dig in with you.
I know. Well, we've known each other for many years and through other adventures in our past. And now we're both on new journeys ourselves. And I'm so excited to connect with you. And I've been to a couple of your meetings, and what you're building with this community is so amazingly authentic and real and cool. And I love that you're expanding from the Denver market to many, many markets. And we can talk about this, but let's talk about, kind of how your past has formed your future, right? How did you get into this world of corporate leadership, and what sparked your passion for empowering us women?
Yeah, well, it's really the journey that I've been on, right? I don't teach anything that I haven't walked through. And I think that's incredibly important, especially when we think about authenticity and what feels real to people. You can tell if somebody is just intellectualizing a concept or if somebody has embodied that concept. And so my journey, I was in corporate for 15 years, and I actually liked it. I think maybe in my posts or in my writing, I have given it more of a negative connotation, but I think that corporate really molded me gave me a lot of the background and the structures and systems to be able to run a business and to be able to understand what it really takes to be successful in some very highly competitive markets, especially in male dominated fields, which is what I was a part of, in medical device sales. And, but I 10 years ago, I started doing personal growth. And so it wasn't that there was anything dramatically wrong with my life. It's just that I didn't know what I didn't know. And I wasn't aware of the things that I actually desired at more of a soul level. I didn't even know how to talk like this back then. I wasn't like, oh, the feminine and the masculine and my soul desires. Like, I had no idea of any of those things. But I started to do personal growth work and became very obsessed with how we become who we are, and really starting to heal parts of my past and things from my upbringing and conditioning that didn't really serve who I was becoming. And so I started through that journey getting connected with deeper parts of myself, getting connected with the parts of me that were questioning the things that I had thought to be true, and the beliefs that I thought were my own, but actually didn't belong to me at all, and started to really learn about the impact of societal conditioning and other people's expectations. And that has been, I've been doing that nonstop for the last 10 years. So there's a lot more to say about that, but that's what sparked this inside of me, was my own journey of starting to really challenge some of these systems and structures, and starting to say yes to my own core desires, and to shift the relationships that I had in my life, and really start to up level the standard that I have for my entire life, and really intentionally curate and create it. And that is a long process. And so when I looked at like, what do I want to build in the world? I wanted to make it easier for everyone to go through this journey, because we all go through it. They called it a midlife crisis, back when we were kids, but it's the evolution of self, and it's really starting to live consciously. And so I was like, well, if I could do anything in the world and I could help women feel safe to be themselves and to follow a path that really lights them up, then like, how fucking cool would that be? And so it's really been like, what did I need along the way, and how could we package it up in a pretty little raw, real way, so that people can also be able to experience this for themselves. Because I tell you what, we need it now more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting as us women who are in our midlife right now, and
Yeah.
you use the word crisis, and I think of, and you and I have talked offline about, where I am in my journey, and I'm in corporate America, and I'm trying to build this with Dawn, this hot flash health, platform for women too. Where is that transition? And that's why we really align with what you're doing at the Nova, because it is about really getting into, touching into the spirituality and your mental and your well-being, and understanding where you want to take things. And I think that us at this age have this realization that we've been running this rat race for so many fucking years. I don't want to wake up one day and be like, that was it. I was just working for a company that like I left and they gave two shits about me. And I spent, 15 years of my life there, and now they could care less. Like, I don't want to be surrounded by those people. And I think a lot of us are feeling that way.
Yeah.
So when you were going through this personal growth in your journey and looking at what is going to transpire for your career and where you want to move, what was like that moment that made you realize, like, I want to build this community for women and I want to create the Nova?
I mean, there's probably 9,000 moments along the way. One of the moments, which what you just shared really reminded me of, is when I was in corporate and I was the number 2 rep at this company, which was a big deal. And I brought in a lot, like millions and millions of dollars of revenue for this organization. I had asked for a sabbatical. So this was like in the beginning when I was first starting to be like, ooh, what do I really want? And my husband and I were getting married, and we were like, let's go on a 2-month honeymoon. And I'm like, oh, easy peasy for me. Like, I'm crushing it. Like, they're not going to be like, no, you can't have this.
Yeah.
And so I did what I put together a portfolio. I applied my case, and it was received so poorly that instead of getting this sabbatical and being able to chase my dreams and come back to this job that I was crushing it at, making their company so much money, they took my company car, shut down my, it was like, they had this conversation with me, like, we're not going to approve it. And then like that day they shut down my computer. Within 2 days, they took my company car, and it was like, great, if that's what you want to do, then like, bye. And it was so abrupt and so shocking, and so like, it was like the first time I had realized that I was just a number.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter how much I had done or what I had accomplished or how, like, I mean, I don't even know how many reps there were, hundreds. I was number 2. And then it was, and I can take personal responsibility for maybe the approach that I had, but either way, the fact that it was so easy to just be like, get out of here. And I know they didn't replace me for over a year. So they were more interested in setting a precedent with me than they were about actual revenue generation. And so that was one of those big moments in my life where I'm like, I really thought that I mattered to this organization, but I didn't. They might have cared about me, but it didn't matter in the grand scheme of their fiscal goals. And so that was a big kick in the ass for me to start to look at other ways. It was this swift kick in the ass that I needed to realize that if I wanted to have a say over my life, and I wanted to create it intentionally and start to make choices that were reflective of my greater desires, that I was probably going to have to do that on my own terms. And I was probably going to have to do that outside of the corporate structure. And that's when I started to go all in Beauty Counter. And I built that business to be the top of the company there. And that's what ultimately, I did end up going back to medical sales after that happened. But ultimately when I was able to exit my career in 2019 is because I built this really robust, beautiful business through Beauty Counter.
Mm-hmm.
And all these threads that I've pulled through to the Nova, what Beauty Counter really taught me and what I'm doing now is how to create a movement, how to take a vision and an idea and get and spark an army of women to go after something together. And that is what I deeply learned inside of Beauty Counter, because we were changing an entire industry, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we're doing now is like, well, the spark is living in your authentic voice. The spark is all around being safe to be seen and be yourself, and to no longer compete with other women, and to really link arms with them and raise each other up, and to challenge the status quo. And that fire is really burning in women's bellies right now.
Yes.
And so it's like I was pulling these threads through to this community, and it's been an evolution, right? I did Beauty Counter, I did business coaching, and then it was finally like I had enough, in quotes. You're never going to be ready. It's like you can get ready for your whole life. But I had walked through enough fires at that point that I just intuitively knew this is the time for this to come to life. And that was in 2023. It was such an iterative process. And I'd known this vision for 10 years, which I always like to say because people are really in a hurry about getting what we want. And I let this thing grow inside of me and in the world for 10 years before it was ready to come to life.
Yeah, that's a good lesson too in patience, right? So I think you're right. Like a lot of us we want change now, we want this now, and it's hard to sit back and wait and understand, to let it kind of marinate and grow into what it needs to be, right? Like
and know that everything is in service to it. It wasn't like I wasn't building it, but it never looks anything like what you think it's going to. And so what I needed to learn through a totally different pathway that I never could have predicted. But I always say, like, if I knew what it would have taken me to actually do what I'm doing now, I would have never done it. I would have been like, no way, that's way too hard.
Yeah.
So it's good that we don't know the path, but that's part of trusting the journey, is knowing that like you get to take the next right step for you, and that is all part of it, right? But it's going to look different than you think.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about what you're building too is really that that connection, that spirituality connection, where, what the event that I went to, I mean, we as women all shared some really, really dark, well, not dark, but just deep things that we were dealing with. I mean, dark and deep. And I've never really cried with a group of women, and to have that really, that layer shed, to have that vulnerability to be able to talk and share and then support one another. Before we even started this call, I was just sharing, one of the members reached out to me and just said, I wanted to check on you, how you're doing. So I love that connection is really another layer on top of like just the general networking. I mean, it's so important for us as women to get out there and meet women and support one another, but having a deeper connection is something that I don't think any of these other networking groups that I've belonged to are really establishing. And I really want to hone into that and kind of talk about your approach with that. And like, you've had these leadership roles, but now you're doing this leadership, this mentoring, and really helping guide women to trust again and be vulnerable. Can you kind of talk through like how you thought about that and how you're doing this in such an effective way?
Yeah. Well, I've been a part of a lot of really intimate, sacred spaces with women. I also will say that I've had a significant history with anxiety in my life, and depression, actually. And I've done a lot of things to heal from that, or I don't like that languaging, but you know what I mean? Like I've done a lot to work on healing, from traditional modalities to, energetic, spiritual things. And the thing that I found to be the most effective was being able to show up as exactly as I am, say the things that I'm most scared to say, the things that cause me the most shame, and be held and be told, yeah, I get it. Or like, I've never walked that path, but I really see you. And being seen in my messiness has been the most healing part of my whole life. And we could spend this entire call just going through all the things that I've tried. And so that, and what that makes possible for me in my career, in my life, in my dreams, in my vision, in my marriage, and my friendships, When I can start to accept and love myself and see myself through being seen by other people who, with discernment, like I allow them into that sacred space of my heart, I raise the standard everywhere. So we think that in order to have more business success, we need to have a better strategy, or we got to go about it in this more masculine, traditional way.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, being seen, finding your belonging, and feeling safe to be yourself are the three most powerful things that you can do to increase your career success, at least in a way that feels good to you. And so when we built this company, safety is the foundation. Safety, and our leaders, we call them luminaries for our chapters. They all have extensive training in the nervous system. So we actually think about safety is like, does your nervous system feel safe, right? And so that is incredibly important to us. When we were building the methodology for how we do this, we brought forward 4 core values, and they are the framework for every single thing that we do. And so we have bold authenticity, collective empowerment, sacred rebellion, and holistic excellence as our 4 core values. And every event each month has a theme that digs deeper into those things. So we have the foundation of safety. We have agreements that we go over every single time we gather on how do you actually hold that safe space for one another. And then everything is tied back into our core values. So we're really like, we wanted the entire container to have that structure. So it's not just something nice that we say, but it's like, these are the principles, and this is how we do what we do in order to make you feel safe to cry in front of other women and share your deep soul with them that you've never met before.
Which I did and felt comfortable, and
yeah,
still have these connections. I guess, what I think about too is when you're this open and this vulnerable, like, how do you balance that, right? So I feel like I have a hard time being so open with some people, and then it might smack you in the face some places. And so how do you have this balance of like, I'm going to be open here and not open here, and protect myself and give myself to certain people? I think, again, us as women are constant givers and lovers and people pleasers. So how do you set those boundaries and prevent that balance of giving too much to people and saving some for the people who really deserve it?
well, I think this comes down to self-trust and discernment. I believe that we are really tapped into the energetics of each other. And I don't have a step 1, 2, 3 to answer that question. When I think about what relationships I want to open up, and they're reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not about just trauma dumping your deepest, darkest secrets to every single stranger that walks up to you. I look at this as you find places to practice. So the Nova is a practice ground. The Nova is a safe place for you to practice trying this thing out. That was a very low stakes environment for you, right?
Yep.
What was going to happen? You were going to cry, you were going to feel uncomfortable, and you were going to leave and hopefully see these people again, but maybe not, It was very low stakes. And so I didn't start by tackling my mom, my dad, my husband. I started to practice in safe spaces that were held in a very specific way. I recommend that because then you start to actually rewire your nervous system to feel safe. And so it's like a crawl. It's not, you don't just start opening yourself up to everybody crying in public. You really have to teach your system that it's safe. And so start with places that are designed that way. I started with a one-on-one coach. Then I went into a small group. I have been building this muscle for 10 years so that I actually am myself every single place that I go. Certain people don't get all my deep secrets, but I'm not a chameleon anymore. And I used to be. And I had to work really freaking hard to stop being a chameleon. So if you meet me and you're a stranger and we meet at a chamber networking event, you're going to get the same version of me that you're going to get around a campfire with a bunch of my girlfriends. You might get different information, but who I am is actually going to be the same person. But you have to practice in places where that is the precedent and they know how to hold that space for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Practice small.
You have to. It's just like, I like to use athletic analogies all the time. I was a competitive athlete through college. I was a pitcher, and it's not like I started out as a collegiate pitcher. I started out like doing these tiny little drills to learn how to pitch. I started practicing for thousands of hours before I was on the field with a really high stakes environment. So if you think about anything that you get good at in your life, it's the same thing. You're just applying it to vulnerability.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, it's a tough road. With the Nova, I mean, you really are rewriting the rules of how we engage with one another, how we look at ourselves, how we look at the future, how we connect with people. So tell me, a little bit more about the platform and how you are helping women break free from the societal conditioning that we're used to right now.
Yeah. Well, so much of it is modeling. We need to see proof that it's going to be okay. Like you need to see proof that, or like I needed to see proof that I could quit my corporate job and run a business in a way that actually felt really good to me. And it's not like that happens overnight, but I'm constantly surrounding myself with vision holders that are showing me what's possible. And we need to see that on repeat. So some of the things are just the way we hold the space, and the things people get exposure to is opening their minds to possibilities that they didn't necessarily know about before. We gather locally, so we have chapters all over the country. We also gather virtually, so we have a global virtual community that connects us all. And we have intentional programming too. So it's not just about teaching people how to deeply and meaningfully and safely connect with one another. We actually are teaching them certain principles, right? So we might have a month where we're talking about burnout, or we might have a month where we're talking about how do you integrate the sacred feminine into your everyday business, even as a corporate woman. So we're providing kind of these growth touch points for them to learn along the way. And what it is it's just opening their minds to a more feminine, integrated way of living. And we're not here to man bash. We're not here to say you don't need the masculine. We really need the structure to be able to have the more flow and the more emotional connection. But it's showing how to live as a whole person, and that it's not A or B. So because we integrate personal, professional, and spirituality all into one umbrella, we are teaching you that even if you're spiritual, that doesn't have to sit on a shelf over here that no one knows about, that you're ashamed of, and you have like an altar hiding under your bed and you can't tell anybody. It's like,
Right.
cool. What are the weird things that you're doing? I have all these things that I'm doing. So it helps integrate wholeness, so you don't feel like you have to hide any parts of yourself. And that's deeply healing. And so that's how we rewrite the rules, because we've been taught as women over centuries that we're not supposed to be vulnerable, that we're supposed to compete with one another, that all of the like basically patriarchal standards were very purposefully and systematically like done to women. And so it's not about teaching us new things. It's about remembering those parts of us that have been a part of us since the beginning of time of women.
Right. I mean, women are nurturers, right? But it's like society who grows up, and I have a teenage daughter right now who's you know meeting all sorts of different personalities, and I see the shifts and see what she's learning and what I don't want her to learn, and I kind of have to let her learn that, but what we learn along the way and how to unlearn that in a way to open up our hearts and minds and
Yeah.
have these more conversational relationships that are truthful, right?
Yeah. And it's normalizing so much. I know that's what you do on the podcast. It's like pretty much everything we've been told not to talk about, we really need to be talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all the things, it's like sex, religion, politics,
Totally.
hormone, whatever. It's like, yeah, let's talk about it. All of it, because that's what keeps us powerless, is when we're quiet and we think we're alone, then we isolate, and then we feel like something's wrong with us. But when we actually start to talk about all the things that everyone wants to talk about, that we're all dealing with anyway, then it normalizes your entire human experience. And so you feel more comfortable showing yourself, because you're like, oh, I'm just like everybody else. I'm unique and I'm magnificent and all those things. But like everything I'm going through is so relatable for most women.
It's true. And I want to talk about isolation for a minute, because you talked about anxiety and depression. I think women going through all these hormonal changes that we're going through with perimenopause and menopause and just our stage in life, we don't know what the fuck is going on with us, right? So for a while, I was so depressed, and I just, kind of attributed it to my parents passing, which obviously a big part of it was. But I still go through these phases of a day where I don't want to get out of bed, or I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that, or I wonder, like, why don't my friends call me? Like, you have these moments of isolation, and I'm even trying to help myself get out of these where, I feel like most of my friends think I'm the most popular person ever and I'm always busy, but I'm not. And then many times I'm like at home doing nothing and no one's calling me because they think I'm busy, but I feel isolated. So what advice do you have for women out there who are going through these stages of isolation to really help get them out of their uncomfortable zone?
Mm, yeah, it's the number one thing we hear from people.
Yeah.
Because even if you're surrounded by people, you can still feel very alone.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and sometimes it's
More
more
so.
so, more so. Yeah, because then you're like, well, I'm around people, but I still don't feel connected, and I still don't feel like
Mhm.
I have my belonging. Um, I think this kind of all ties back to how are we interacting with one another. And we had an event recently at the Nova in Denver, and we had quite a few people that came from Eventbrite.
Oh, that's
And
great.
in our title, we say soul led. We use those words, and people were like, half the group. The theme was, well, normally I would be on my couch right now alone, like trying to isolate, and I really am craving human connection. And I think what happens is we crave connection, we go looking for it, and then it sucks,
Yeah.
and it's the same old thing. Or you go to a networking group and you're like, cool, you want me to just pitch myself, or this is all about mandatory lead sharing or whatever it is, and you have these depleting surface level conversations, and you go home and you feel shittier than you did when you forced yourself to try to be social. And so it's discernment to me. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can take that question, but I think if you're craving not being alone, it's really, how do you get to be with the people that you are being with? And this is, again, I'm going to beat a dead horse, where you've got to practice in
Mhm.
vulnerable spaces, because it's not the fact that you are literally alone or you're literally with people. It's, what are you bringing to the table of yourself? And can you show up as yourself, and can you share deeply about yourself and find that meaningful connection, because that actually makes you want to go out in the world. And I think even just saying out loud, people think this thing about me, it's not actually true, and often I feel alone. And to say the things out loud that feel, I don't know how you feel about that statement, but you might not have ever said that out loud, and to be met with like, yeah, I know, I feel that way sometimes too. I'm like, everyone else has plans, and why aren't I being invited? And then
Mhm.
you normalize the experience that, yeah, of course, Courtney, I see you, and I feel that way a lot too as an extroverted person. But when I do go out, I'm really intentional about where I go now. And you
Yeah.
can't avoid surface level conversations. You can't avoid times where you're like, God, I wish I would have gone to that thing. But you can start to fill your cup up with some intentional spaces that, when you go there, you're going to feel more nourished than you were before you went. And that makes you want to leave your house because you're like, I'm going to come home feeling so full instead of depleted. And so therefore I'm going to make the effort to leave my couch, to go out and to find friends that actually want to interact in a way that I want to interact.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And thank you for sharing that, because it is, taking some ownership and saying, who do I want to talk to, and sharing some experiences, but also, as we're older and we don't want to deal with the bullshit of going out and just meeting 10 random people, like we want to really meet people who are impactful and give us something in return, right? So my biggest thing is like, yeah, when I go out, I want to be with a friend who's actually going to talk to me and listen and give me a hug, and I'll give them a hug, right? So it's like that intentional meeting and
Yeah.
having people that really lift you up instead of tear you down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it takes, oftentimes you might get that from one, two friends in your life. And that's why I wanted Nova spaces to be like, whenever you walk into a Nova space, you feel like it's an exhale. Like you feel
Yeah.
like, I don't even know you, but I kind of know your soul already because you're in this room. And just by the nature of that, like, I want to let you in maybe more than I would a normal stranger.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that too, is like building community is so important, right? Like we're always trying to find our key people, our community of people, people we want to work with, people we want to create with. And you've created this space where women can share their highs and lows and feel really comfortable about that without having any judgment. Um, I know you're kind of on the brink of brilliance, right? You're like launching all of these different chapters. Kind of walk us through your vision for Nova and how you see this community evolving.
I mean, I see us having we call our chapters constellations. I see us having constellations in every major city in the United States and around the world. I look at some of these other communities that have been able to grow at scale, and they have tens of thousands of members all over the world. And I really see that happening for the Nova. And, what's been really cool is the organic growth already is that our market expansion has been truly women emailing me or Courtney, you're like, hey, I have this friend named Liz. She lives in LA. Like, she would be amazing for this. And so it's been this beautiful, organic connecting me to people that can hold that space, that want to bring this to life. And we do everything through strategic partnerships, or I like to call them sacred alliances. For me, it's a more feminine way of building this business, is linking arms with other communities that we might have thought of as competition. But instead, we're like, cool, you have this really cool thing. I'm building this really cool thing. What do you have that I might need? And what do I have that you might need, that we could link arms and we could build something really beautiful together. And so we've been doing a lot of our business growth that way. I really see this as it's a movement. It's really a movement to heal feminine relationships. And I believe that by cultivating these safe spaces in local markets with the global connection, like, that is truly how we're going to do it, because women are going to, it's a feeling, it's a vibe, it's an energy. And I have yet to find somebody that has not found relating to one another in a new way beneficial. Every single woman I talk to is craving something like this. And I'm not going to deep dive into politics, but the more that we're kind of backtracking as far as women's rights and there's more encouragement of more masculine environments, we can't go back to sleep. Women are awake, we're conscious, and we're not fucking going back to sleep. And so this is giving a platform for women to stay awake, to stay conscious, and to continue to fuel that fire, so that we don't lose traction, right? We want to continue to evolve, and really it's coming at life from a place of love versus coming at life from a place of fear. Everything that the feminine stands for is more love. And so no one gets harmed in this, right?
Yeah.
This is a beautiful evolution of the way women show up for their entire lives and each other. And when it's rooted in love, it can't go wrong.
Yeah. I love what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. I'm even thinking right now with Hot Flash, I'd love to have a constellation of just menopausal women who want to connect in, the Nova and talk. So I'd love to chat with you about that. But
we just launched an app, actually. We have our app launch party this afternoon, and we have
what the app?
the app. So we have an app now, and so we have special interest channels, and that could be a special interest channel. Yeah. I mean, I talk about hormones all the time because I'm on hormone replacement therapy. I'm deep in the weeds of all things hormonal right now. I found it to be really healing to talk about it constantly and have a place for that. So I'm here for that. I mean, we have a huge desire for more women's health content, and we can't do everything at once, but women want to be educated, and this is a highly intelligent, highly motivated group of conscious women who want to grow and learn together. And so anytime we can expand our current knowledge base, especially around things that impact women like hormone health, it's really going to improve. It's going to make things better for all of us.
Yeah. Calm us bitches down.
Oh my God, I know.
How's a hormone replacement therapy going for you?
I mean, I would say not great, honestly. I had my checkup. I'm 4 or 5 months. No, how many months am I in? 5 months in. And, my progesterone levels are still low. My estrogen levels are still low. I mean, I'm just under a tremendous amount of stress. I actually just started Zoloft.
You're launching a big organization, a big community. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's been really hard, honestly. And I think it gave me some relief for a bit, but I'm just under so much stress all the time. My cortisol levels are just through the roof. And so I got off all medication 10 years ago and was really proud of that, because I'd taken Lexapro and Zoloft and Xanax and all the things. And so I got back on Zoloft 3-4 days ago, because I was like, I need to neutralize myself. There's just so much on my plate. And I think this is the same for all women in the middle of our lives, especially if you have children. The level of responsibility that we have is outrageous. And so I am I have a whole new protocol, and I'm going to be increasing my hormone levels that are whatever you call it that I'm taking. I got better for a bit, and I felt a little bit more stabilized, and then things started to get rocky again. And I was like, oh God. So I just did, I did blood work again,
It's a
and
journey,
it's such a journey. Yeah. I was hoping, we'd have one appointment. I'd get on
Magical.
this. Yeah. And then magically, like every
Yeah.
level would be stabilized and I'd be fine and I would feel normal. And it's not like that. So I think that's the importance of just having that support system and continuously checking back in and being like, hey, is this working? How do I feel? And, I felt insane. So I was like, obviously I need some help.
Well, I feel the same with you. Some days I'm like insane and like, what the hell is wrong with me? You're not alone. And that's why you're a community of women to share that too and say.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of how I was when I went through, I had a lot of pelvic floor issues after I had my son, who's almost 8.
Yep.
And so I was on like this, I'm like, everybody needs to go to pelvic floor therapy. This is crazy. Why haven't we been talking about that? I got so many of my friends to go to pelvic floor PT. And I feel the same way about hormones. I'm like, oh my God, all of us need to be getting our hormone tested. Why isn't this standard of care? Like, why doesn't every single woman over the age of 40 know their hormones and getting support around it? Like, this is bananas, like that my mom has never once in her life got her hormones tested and she's 75. Yeah. So I feel like I'm on this soapbox with you probably for the rest of my life that I'm like, this is something we all need to be talking about.
I agree. Let's talk, ladies. Let's talk. Well, for anybody who wants to join the Nova, tell them how they can get in touch with you and join your amazing, beautiful community that you've created.
Yeah, so our brand and our website and our Instagram is all the Nova Global. So if you go to thenovaglobal.com, the Nova Global on LinkedIn, the Nova Global on Instagram, it's all the same. And you can check out our membership page. You can also just send me an email. I'm a real human who does care about you. So you can also just email us at info@thenovaglobal.com. We have an amazing member concierge that connects with people as well. We really are in the business of relationships and we do genuinely care. We're not just trying to get 10,000 members just to say that we did that.
That'd be nice.
It'd be nice, but also to do it in a way that still deeply values the individual along the way. So you can fill out an application or go to our website or just send us an email, whatever feels safe for you. We have a freebie on our website. It's called the Inner Nova Kit. So that gives you a taste of some of our resources that we offer, some of the types of facilitators, because I lead sometimes, but mostly I bring in really incredible women to lead. So you get a taste of who's in this community and what are they doing and what are they teaching. So if that feels like the safest thing is just to download the Inner Nova Kit, then we would love to provide that to you.
We love that. Well, before we leave, I just want to know, is there some sort of mantra or philosophy that you live by that you think every woman should embrace during this journey that we're on?
My favorite quote of my own is, "You are not confused." I have yet to have anybody prove me wrong on that one, including myself when I think that I am. But women think that they don't know what to do all the time. And if you actually just ask them, I have a client that I was like, well, what would it look like if you went out on your own practice? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And then we went inside and I talked her through it. I just asked her questions and she could tell me the plants and the names of the people and what was on the wall. And I'm like, we all know, we just don't trust what we know. And so I always just say, you're not confused. If you trust that you know what's best for you and that you know what to do, and it comes down to trust. So I always like to remember women that they absolutely fucking know what to do all the time.
We do. There is this thing called intuition and it's there for a reason, ladies. So tap into that. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing your journey, your insights, and building this beautiful community. Everybody should be a part of it. It's truly a personal transformation to be a part of what you're building. And this authentic community is and none other I've ever seen. So thanks for breaking the silence and helping us change our hormones and empowering women.
All of it's part of the same thing. So thank you for having me here. It was really beautiful to get to chat with you.
Yes. Well, until next time, listeners, bye. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Remember, menopause may be a wild ride, but together we've got this.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Hot Flash Health.
Stream and subscribe to us on any of your favorite listening platforms like YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
And of course, share your thoughts with us. We love hearing from our amazing listeners.
And until next time, stay sassy, stay fabulous, and keep those hot flashes in check.
Yeah, girl.
Woo!